handmade life. You can find me on Instagram as Louleigh_, and on Ravelry as Louleigh, and I have an Etsy shop where I sell knitting needle cases and notions cases, and that's at Shop Louleigh. But you can find links to all of my online places at louleigh.com. And right on cue is a little pom-pom head. Yeah, I'm a New Zealander living in the East Riding of Yorkshire, and this is my podcast about my handmade life. So yeah, we're all here now. He'll sit down in a minute and we can carry on. Today I am wearing my peony dress from, is it Colette or Colonette? I think it's Colette Designs. Yeah. Yeah, and I've just made it in this nice sort of gingery bronzy coloured linen that I really like. So just a quick bit at the start about shop news. Shop Louleigh on Etsy is stocked up with DPN cases and small and large interchangeable needle cases, and there are notions cases in there right now. So I'll put a little slideshow at the end, and if you want to treat yourself you can pop over there and take a look. This is community news, and I've closed quarter 3 of the Advent mini skein swap and paired everybody up. A lot of people had missed out maybe on the first or second quarter, and so they wanted to have 2 swap partners. So hopefully I've got all of that right, and you will all be busily preparing your mini skeins to send off to your swap buddies. And I have opened the thread for quarter 4. So if you want to be involved in quarter 4, that will close at the end of September, and I will pair everybody up. So everybody should have their mini skeins in plenty of time to open them in their advent calendars, if that's what you're doing with them. Of course, you don't have to save them for Advent. You can do whatever you want. It's your yarn. Yeah, but if you are, then having everybody paired up and the packages go off in October should mean that everybody has everything ready for the 1st of December and for Advent. You are the silliest little dog in the whole wide world. Silly thing. We also have the Stash Depreciating shawl along running in the group at the moment. And this week I have been working on my Sizzle Pop, which is a pattern by Leslie Ann Robinson, and I am basically following it to the letter. And I'm really excited because I don't really want to put this down at the moment. It's so easy just to pick up and carry on. I've got to the point with the pattern that I just have to look at the chart at the beginning of the fancy row to remind myself exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and then I can just crack on with it. Yeah, so it's pretty relaxing at this point. I did make a mistake on, I can't actually see it now. Actually, I made 2 mistakes on one of the fancy rows where I had forgotten to do this, I think it's about a 4-stitch increase just there. You have 1 stitch and you make it into 5. And I was super pleased with myself because I actually managed to drop down 2 rows of brioche and fix it. So I'm putting that down as my moment of knitting genius this week. I also made another mistake over on this edge where I think I did a right leaning decrease instead of a left one, or vice versa or something like that, but I'm not actually going to go back and fix that because it hasn't changed the stitch count and it would have been tricky, and I don't think it's that big a deal. It's not quite as bad as not making 1 stitch into 5, so you know, I can fudge it, not a problem. Well, I can just ignore it and it's not going to be catastrophic, whereas not having made those 4 extra stitches would have been a bit of a bother. I am into the beige section of my, it's just, I don't know if you can see it there, it's just getting into the lighter beige section of my gradient cake. This is a cake by Farrow Fine Hand Paints. And it used to be orange in the middle. Well, there was pink and orange in the middle, and so now I'm just getting out, I'm onto the beige section, and then I'll go on to these more greyy, browny, some more mushroom coloured sections. So that's really exciting. I've been looking forward to those colour changes. They kind of keep you going, and because the rows are longer now, it feels like it's happening more often, when in fact I'm probably doing just as much knitting and there's just as much of one colour, but yeah, you know how it goes, it's getting wider so the stripes are narrower. So yeah, that is just relaxing. It's really nice chill out knitting, so I'm enjoying it, you know. Yeah, it's nice to just sit down in the evening and have something I can just plod away at without having to think about it too much. This is the sock segment, and this week I have been working away on my sample pair of lace weight socks, which is really fun. Thank you to everybody who volunteered to test knit for me. I really do appreciate it, and it's so lovely to see the yarns that are being used. There's one sock that's been finished already and it looks really good. Yeah, I really enjoy test knitting and seeing what people are doing, and yeah, just the chatter that goes on. Yeah, so this is my sock so far. I think I'm just about at the end of the gusset decreases. I'm using 2.5mm needles. Hold on, he's decided to leave. And the yarn I'm using is, let me just get the label out, this really nice sort of, it's a warm pink colour I would call it. I don't know if you're going to see it accurately there, perhaps if I put it on the shady side, that's better. Yeah, so this is from Martin's Lab, and it is a BFL silk in Baby Flamingo, and I think they call it Aubrey lace. So yeah, I would say it's on the heavier end of lace weight, but the colours in there are just really pretty. It's got a hot pink and some little bits of apricot, and then mainly it's this beautiful warm pink. I think last time when I showed you the first sock that I had knitted, I showed you this yarn and said that it was tight as 4-ply. Of course it's not, it's tight as lace weight. But that's really pretty as well. But yeah, so progress is coming along on those. The last thing I have to talk to you about today is a brand new sewing project. It's still quite warm here and the sun is out, and I just want to sew all of the summer dresses. So last weekend, Zena, who is Little Yellow Yoke and has a marvellous podcast, showed a lovely picture of her sporting her new Farrow dress, which is a pattern by Grainline Studio, and she just looks so cool and comfy that I kind of had dress envy. So I printed out the pattern and I decided to make a toile just of the top section, because the pattern actually suggests that you have quite a lot of ease. Let me just find it here. I've realised it's under all my other stuff. So, no, that's not it. Here we go. So, for the sizings, for my bust measurement, it would recommend that I had 5 inches of ease, so that's about 12.5 centimetres, which would just be huge on me. And also I measured the pattern pieces and I realised that if I cut those pieces, the shoulders were actually going to be too wide, and would probably, I don't think they would fall off, but they would stick out in a funny way. It was going to be massive on me. This pattern has no bust shaping though, and so I suspect that if I had made the version for my bust size with all of that ease, that I probably wouldn't have had to put in bust shaping. But I actually went down in the end for this I went down 3 sizes, and I found that when I put it on, this is the toile that I made out of the top section. When I put it on, because there was no extra space for my bust, the whole side seam kind of pulled forward, and the whole back of the dress pulled forward. Yeah, so I found my bust point, which is basically the apex of your boob, and made a wee dot, and then I slit the top open and added in about 5 centimetres of fabric across there, and then made a dart at the side. Well, I didn't make a dart, I just tapered this bit in because I was just sewing in a bit of extra fabric, but just to give it the right shaping. And then I'm not sure if it'll be completely perfect when I make up the whole dress, but it will be an improvement. That side seam was pulling forward quite a lot, so it did straighten it up by putting in that extra fabric. I also decided that it was just a little too tight around my bust. It had kind of 0 ease, and I had expected it to have more like a couple of centimetres of ease, and so I just wanted it to be a little bit looser. So I had cut the size 4 for this, and just to test out my theory, I let the front and back seam out just a little bit, and that just meant that the fabric didn't look like it was pulling across my bust. So for the actual dress, I have decided to cut out a size larger, the size 6. Yeah, and at the moment I have just cut out all of the pieces that I need. So this is the front piece, and I don't know if you can see, but I have marked on here where my bust point is, and then I cut the pattern straight across. So we've just had a little interruption from the dog. So this is the pattern piece for the front, where I've made my bust adjustment, and basically I found my bust point, and this is the straight middle line, so I cut perpendicular from that across the pattern through my bust point, and then I've added in 5 centimetres of paper there, and then made a dart. If you're making a dart, you don't want to finish exactly on your bust point, because that just ends up looking like a big arrow. So I've had it finished about 3 centimetres away, and then it's got this funny kink at the side, because if I fold my dart, and if I just evened this out and cut it straight through, sometimes when you fold your dart you don't catch the edge into your seam allowance. So what I do is I fold the dart like this, and then I straighten out the edge, so that I make sure that I have enough fabric there that it all gets caught in my seam allowance when I sew the side seam, and I don't have a horrible raw edge there. So yeah, I have held this up to my body and it looks like it fits, so I shall go forth boldly. Normally if I was using a more expensive fabric I would probably do another toile, but I've got a cheap and cheerful fabric from IKEA. Oops, lots of rustling here. And I'm going to make it up in this. I did think about colour blocking it with a denim style fabric, but I don't like colour blocking with colours that are from the same sort of family. So blue together with blue, I didn't think that that looked that good, and so I thought I would just use this fabric. I only have 2 meters of it, and the pattern calls for a little bit more. So yeah, I'm not sure how I'll get on with that, because actually I found something else that was really interesting about this pattern. When I was looking at the cutting layout for the pattern pieces, I noticed that they had the pieces going in different directions. So in order to fit all the pieces on the fabric, they had the two top pieces of the pattern with the necklines kind of facing each other. So actually, if your fabric had a nap or an obvious pattern, you would have to buy a lot more fabric than they recommend. So a nap is when your fabric has an obvious or even a not very obvious direction. So the ones that spring to mind immediately are things like corduroy and velvet, where all of those little fluffy fibres sort of lay in one direction. So if you were to cut the pieces in different directions, when you viewed them on a finished garment, the fabric might look like a slightly different colour because it would catch the light in a different way. And you can get some really subtle nap effects, especially in fabrics where there is more than one colour used in the weaving. So like a herringbone or a shot silk or something like that. If the pieces are cut in different directions, sometimes when you stand in a certain light, or if you go out in the daylight, they look quite obviously different. And yeah, so it's just interesting to me that they've actually got their cutting layout with the pieces actually laid in different directions, and that's what they've recommended for their fabric requirements as well. So yeah, I think if you had bought a patterned fabric, then it's probably a good idea to buy a bit extra. But anyway, I have 2 meters. It's a little bit less than I'm supposed to need for this dress, and so I shall see how I get on. I can always cut the facings from another fabric. So hopefully, I don't think this one is just a normal woven poly cotton, so I don't think I'm going to have any nap issues with it. Yeah, and yeah, so I'm going to cut that out this weekend and whiz it up, and yeah, that should be really good fun. I think that's all I have to say about that. I start waffling on about something like nap, and then I'm not sure if I've got to the end or not, or if I've even explained it well. But anyway, there you go. I'm going to cut it out this weekend and sew that up, and hopefully have a really nice summer dress to wear. So my focus projects for this week will be my shawls, probably Sizzle Pop. I can see myself just picking that up and just relaxing and enjoying knitting a few more leaves and enjoying the colour changes. Yeah, so I suspect you could see that next week. And of course I'm going to be knitting on my ultralight socks, and hopefully this evening I can cut out my Farrow dress and crack on with that. So I think those will be the 3 things that I'm working on this week. It's been so nice to sit and have a little chat with you. I hope you'll come and join us in the Ravelry group and join in some of the fun things that are happening over there. And if you enjoyed yourself, subscribe and give me a thumbs up, and I shall see you next time. Cheerio!